So discover for yourself what kind of learner you are. And then what are some little tricks you can use to help you learn?
Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Miss Melodie's Learning Bites. In today's episode, we'll hear from Bill Kohler about how students can overcome language barriers in a virtual class environment to have a successful and positive classroom experience.
Well, Bill, thank you for joining me today. We
Thank you
are
for
going
asking me.
to be talking to Bill Kohler. He is a former professor from the University of Illinois, Chicago, who is a specialist in language, and language is a major portion of the communication that we need in the classroom. So, Bill, welcome to the Miss Melodie's Learning Bites. I have started noticing that almost half of my students, English is their second language.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that I can do to help them interact with me more and to feel more comfortable if they're a Spanish speaker, if they're a Tagalog speaker? Not only is the culture new, but the words are new and the technology is new.
Yeah, you have a triple threat there. And the anxiety of all three of those, I'm somewhat anxious with just the technology that we're facing today and communicating with you. Those three inhibit learning. Fear inhibits learning. So one thing I've learned in dealing with the students of a second language is watch the vocabulary that you use carefully. Simplify your language. For example, in one class, I taught an ESL class in Chicago at the Lakeview Learning Center. And it was a class of mixed languages. There were Japanese, there were Mexicans, there were Argentines or Colombians, lots of Europeans, strong Polish influence in Chicago. But I would never say, turn to page 111 or turn to page 111, because I don't know if they know 11. But if I say, turn to page 111, then they'll hear page 111 and they'll get that. They might not even know the phrasal verb turn to. Turn means to go right or go left. Why are you asking me to turn the page? I don't understand turn. But you might say, see page 111. Yeah, and as you know, body language, and that's what's so tough about this, body language is a major component of communication, because so many people will say something, but their body language is completely different. And the body language supersedes the verbal when it comes to truth. If you watch somebody and they're speaking, but their body is telling you they're not doing that, don't believe it. For example, I spent 25 years in sales, and I learned in sales that if anybody goes to their eye like this, they do not agree with you. You know, Bill, I really appreciate what you're telling me today. Oh, they don't appreciate what they're telling you. And if anybody goes with their mouth like this when they're talking, they are lying almost 100% of the time. Touch your mouth, you're lying. If you touch your eye, you don't agree. Just little body language tips like that I learned through sales that I find fascinating.
Again, I hear you coming back to the whole relationship idea of building that relationship. And that is, again, I'm just struck by that because I hadn't really thought about it before. But with our cohorts, I think one of the reasons our students like our cohorts so well is they see the same instructor every day. In fact, my students quite often pop in early just so they can have a chance to visit, not just with me, but with each other. And I encourage them to try to network with each other, because you never know who has a connection that can kind of get you. And you might find you live next door to this person almost. I've had very interesting connections develop once I can get them to talk to each other.
Find out what kind of learner you are. A lot of people think, well, if I sit down and just read the book and take notes and write bullet points and memorize those, I'm learning what's going on. And I have learned through 72 years of life and over 20 years in education and longer as a student, that if I can't explain something to you, then I don't know it, much less understand. But if I can explain it to you, then I know more about it and I feel like I can manage it. So when I listen to a lecture or when I listen to a sermon or when I listen to somebody tell me something, I try to pretend that there's somebody outside the room that can't hear any of this, and I've got to explain it to her or to him when I'm done. And that helps me listen with a focus of, okay, what's the main point here? And what are maybe the three main points coming out of the main, with three supporting points that are coming out of the main point to help you remember what's going on. Remember, taking notes in class is really, it's difficult to take notes and listen at the same time because you're doing one or the other. So you might learn to, are you a visual learner? Are you a kinetic learner, meaning do you physically have to get up and walk around to do something? Are you a, what's the other one? Oral learner? Do you listen and hear an auditory way? I'm visual. I want to see the graph and I want to do it. A young man came in and showed me how to do something on the computer the other day. And he grabbed the mouse and he said, okay, you need to open it. I said, no, stop. Let me do it. And then because it embedded in me and I took notes, grabbed the mouse, open the file, save the file. It just helped me so that when I went back and I did it, it would be my second or third time to do it. So discover for yourself what kind of learner you are. And then what are some little tricks you can use to help you learn?
It sounds to me like you're talking about a lot of study skills, which is a great point to kind of bring out with these guys, because a lot of the students that join our cohorts are students who are coming back to school for the first time. And so learning to study, you can be busy and not learn anything, or you can utilize your time efficiently. And so we talk a lot about study skills. One of the things that we have started doing is we would call it low risk testing. The fact that it's frequent short quizzes in order to test comprehension, but we also do a lot of, as you said, if they can talk it back to me, then they know it, if they can explain it back. So not only can they take the quizzes, but they have the opportunity to actually take them 3 times. So you can take it, you can see what you missed, you have the time to go back, you can look it up, you can figure it out, and then you build on it again for the next day. And that low risk test taking, if you can get past the idea that it is a test, it's low risk, so that you don't have to be afraid to fail, you can try it again. And knowing that you have that opportunity to do that. Vocabulary is one of the big things. One of the things that the students push back on a little bit, and I've been able to explain to them why I don't do this. I remember at first they would say to me, these questions aren't the same as my review questions. So you change the wording of the question. So, or maybe it's a multiple choice question, but you then on the review, but then on the test it's just one of the things that was an option is now the question. So talking to them about study skills in knowing, not just memorizing questions and not just memorizing a process, but looking at all the words, reading carefully, looking at the options that are not part of the answer to try and, do you know the whole picture and not just memorizing to pass a test? So, and Microsoft does this intentionally, and that's what we're trying to prepare them for. Microsoft has a way of, they ask questions that aren't direct. And especially for people who have issues with language, I think it's something
that's tough
to get used to. So for example, Microsoft has a term called banded, which means that every other row is shaded. So if you were to go take a test, they might ask you to shade every other row, and all they're asking you to do is turn on the banded option. pushing people to see the language from lots of different synonyms and different ways of looking at it. There isn't an ABC approach to technology. You need to know it kind of all around. Bill, you've given us some great ideas. If to kind of sum everything up, I've heard you say that we need to slow down, make sure that people have time to process the information that they're hearing, to use simple language to make sure that we're not having a barrier coming across, repetition, and giving them the opportunity to learn and try something and fail, but yet fail in a way that it's safe to fail. They can try it again, they can do it again, and they can master it without worrying about being perfect.
You also want to make it fun if you can, without being silly. Give it some level of enjoyment, and I think the fun also takes the fear away. It's hard to fear something when you're laughing or when you feel safe. But no, I think that summarizes things well.